and I've also taken classes with cast fitters.
The cellular analysis, is that particular to the device itself, the cell phone device?
No,
That is particular to towers?
to the towers and the providers themselves.
When did you take that training?
Well, the cast, I believe it was in 2019, and then I also did it again last year.
And the CAS that you took in 2019, that was the ENDICAC, is that right?
That was predominant again, correct?
And the CAS that you took last year was October of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was the actual CAST training.
They were both done by actual cast members. I'm not sure if one was sponsored by the other, but they were both owned by FBI cast members.
And Your Honor, if I can approach.
Yes, thank you.
Detective Mowry, I'm putting in front of you what's labeled as Defendant's Exhibit O, and those are 2 certificates for training. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. The one that's from 2019, what did that cover?
that covered the use of the casters software.
And what did the one in 2023 cover?
The second.
Your Honor, I move for admission of Defendant's O.
The objection?
No objection.
Okay, those are exhibit, oh, no objection. Thank you.
The Detective Mowry, how many total hours do those certificates represent of CAST training?
I apologize, I didn't look, it was a week long, it was actually a couple of days each time. 2 days a piece of
Do you
please.
need this?
But so the 2019 shows 24 hours, and the 2023 says 16 hours.
Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
Detective, you've written some reports in this case, is that correct?
Yes,
I want to talk about 2 particular reports right now. One is from May the 5th of 2023. Do you recall that report, or should I bring a copy of that to you?
if you helpful to add it up.
I can definitely do that. You can show it to Ms. Jennings.
We have a jury next door,
Okay.
just so you know, that's all about it.
Detective Mowry, does that appear to be your report from May 5th of 2023?
Yes,
And Your Honor would move for admission of defendants P,
That's P,
like Paul?
all right, any objection? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Exhibit P is admitted, no objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Mowry, I do not have a police report for the other one that I want to talk about today. It's one that I received via email today that was written just within the last few days by you, probably. Do you know what report I'm talking about?
yes.
Okay. Now, what I want to understand is we're talking about documents or records or logs that can be created by a CAST Viz program. The report that you wrote that I received today, when did you learn about those documents that exist according to that report?
The research logs that I found were from yesterday.
Why did you come to find them yesterday?
I was preparing for this hearing.
Okay. And those are things that existed for quite some time, is that correct?
They did.
And when you wrote about your work with CastBiz in May of 2023, did you document those items?
No,
Tell me what you found when you were preparing for the motion to compel today.
I found session logs that were sent to me from the FBI.
All right, and in those session logs, how many files were there?
I don't remember, I think there were 6 or 7 different items inside.
Did you look at the CastBiz 48-hour file?
I don't remember if I did at the time of reception.
Did you look at it yesterday in preparation for this hearing?
I attempted to.
All right, and how about the CastBiz full log?
I attempted to yesterday.
I noticed in your report that there were several items that you listed. Were those from these CastBiz logs that you attempted to look at yesterday?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to, you need to speak up a little bit. Or just telling me to pick up a little bit.
There were some files that were in the session logs, there were other files that were not.
Well, let's start with the 48-hour. What was contained in there?
There's older 48 hours that was the AT&T records, the original records. And there's a 48-hour session log. I don't know which one you're asking about.
Let's go with the session log. What was in there?
Appeared to be the AT&T records that possibly were inputted, as well as some JSON files that were probably produced by CastBiz.
JSON files were produced by CastBiz. Is that right?
I would assume that. I didn't create those files.
What date were they created?
I believe one was in December. The other was in April.
December of what year?
22,
And April of what year?
23.
Could you tell who created those?
I could not.
How did you get those?
I was provided those via email.
By who?
I made balance of the FBI.
What did you do with those?
Gave them as soon as I realized they were in my possession. I had contacted the prosecutor and gave them.
And that would be just yesterday, is that correct?
Yes,
What did you do with them prior to that time?
they were sent to me. I put them in a folder and I didn't do anything else with them. That's why I forgot them.
Okay, and that was the 48-hour file?
48-hour session log, yes.
How about the full file? What was contained in there?
Similar items to the 48.
What is the full file?
I believe that was the second AT&T return that we got via warrant. I wasn't able to open it to verify it.
That brings up a question for clarification. When you say second warrant return, are you talking about something that relates to Brian Koberger?
Yes, there was 2 warrants that were originally written. One that covered a 48-hour period for the cell phone number, and there was one that was later done for a longer period of time.
And those are what you're referring to as the warrants 1 and warrant 2?
Correct. One for 48 and one for the longer period.
In the report that I just received today, there was reference to a loped bar file. What's that?
It is a file that I received from Agent Balance.
When did you receive that?
Honestly, the modification or the email, I honestly don't remember. Unfortunately, it was yesterday and I've been throwing this stuff together, so
Okay. So that was one that you just found yesterday?
yes,
Okay. Did you open that?
I don't recall opening it. If I did, I don't recall doing it.
How about the CDR.S.XLSX file? Was that, and CDR, what does that stand for?
All detail records,
Did you open that?
I don't remember if I did not.
Did you open it yesterday?
I don't remember. I was looking for, once I found them, I was trying to figure out how they came into my presence or in my possession. That's where I started to focus.
Okay. How about the export.kmz file? When did you find that file?
I had found that one yesterday.
Do you know when that came into your possession?
It was some time ago.
Did you open that?
I believe I did on my laptop.
What did that show you?
It showed me different locations and so forth on a map.
Those three files that we just talked about, along with the CastViz 48 and the CastViz full, are those copied so that I can have those now?
Yes,
And you referred to emails. How many emails did you find when you were preparing for this hearing?
I believe there was 5.
Are those included for me to have now as well?
Yes,
Thank you. In the report that I received today, there was a reference to drawings.json file. What's that?
it was a JSON file that was inside the CastViz session notes.
What does that depict?
It's just data that CastViz would use, I'm guessing, to replot something on the map to actually show locations or other things.
Did you do anything with that file when you found it yesterday?
I did open that file, yes.
Okay. What did that show you when you opened it?
There were references to 2 locations inside.
When you open it, does it just say here's 2 references, or what does it show you when you open it?
It's different code, but there is some plain language or plain English, plain text inside of that code that show 2 addresses.
Did you use that file? Well, let me ask this first. That file that contains code, do you use that with the CastViz program?
I attempted to load the session file in its entirety and received errors, so I was not able to. That's why I went into the JSON file to see if there was something I could see reference.
Is that file usable?
I'm sure it is somewhere.
What is the restriction for you?
I don't know what restriction it is. I don't know what to do with that file outside of, if I could possibly bring it into the CastViz. I tried to pull it in as a combined session log, which is what I was trained to do. So I didn't get that. I didn't pull that file.
Is that file available on a Discovery drive for me?
Provided to the prosecutor today.
Thank you. In the report that I just got today, there's a reference to another CastViz session and some screenshots. What is that about?
I believe you're talking about just the regular 48 hours folder.
I don't know. I'm curious.
So that I provided 2 folders. One was CastViz and one that was just my last name of Maori. That was to differentiate the files that I found that were provided to me and the folder of the files that I used to create this report.
Okay. CastViz is the files that you found while preparing,
Correct.
and the one that says Maori is what you used to create your May 3rd report of 2023.
Yes.
Okay, I think I understand that now. In that file, I think your report said you found screenshots dated April 19th of 2023.
Yes.
All right. Does that mean that's the day that you put things into your CastViz program?
That was the day that I made the screenshots themselves.
Okay. Where are those screenshots now? Are those also included on the drive?
Yes.
Okay. And then your report dated 5/3 says that you were asked to examine the record. So I'm a little confused if you had something that you took screenshots of on 4/19, but on 5/3 you were asked to examine the record. What were you doing on 4/19 or before to get those screenshots?
So I was tasked, the date was May 3rd for the report. It's not the date that I asked.
Okay. What day were you asked to do?
I cannot remember. I'm gonna guess that it was somewhere around April 19th. Because that's when the screenshots were created.
Okay. Let's talk about that time frame then and what you did. Did you actually use a CAST Viz program at that time to create something?
Yes,
The CAST Viz program that you used at that time, and we're talking about springtime of 2023, we'll call it April for now, if that's fair. What training had you received by then to do this CAST Viz program?
the 2019.
Okay. With the CAST Viz program, what's the first thing that you did?
Once the program is open, you can drag and drop the CPR records into the program.
CDR means call detail records.
Right.
Did you do just 48-hour records or did you do full records in April of 2023?
I only did 48 hours.
When you put the records in, those are the call detail records, and those relate to what?
To the phone that the records were coming back to.
The number you associated with Brian Koberger.
Correct.
Okay. After you put those call detail records in, do you have to do anything with cell towers?
With the AT&T, no, because the cell tower locations are in the AT&T CPR.
Okay. So you put that record in, the tower locations are already part of the call detail record that you put in?
Yes,
Is that something that you have electronic on your computer and then you open your CastViz program and just import it into the program?
yes, AT&T provides both PDF and text documents of the file, and I use the text document to put into CastViz to have it adjusted.
And when you do that, what gets exported?
Nothing. At that point, nothing is exported or created that I know of.
Can you export the session that you're working on?
You can export a session log, yes.
Did you do that?
No.
How did you create screenshots?
By using the built-in Windows snip tool, as well as the built-in Windows game console, or they call it the game bar, which is just accessed by hitting Windows G. That allows you to record your screen.
Are those the only two things you did, is screen clip and screen record?
Yes,
How many times did you use call detail records in the CastViz program?
probably a dozen times. I'm not entirely sure.
That was a terrible question. How many times did you use the CastViz program in relation to Brian Koberger's call detail records?
I don't know.
More than once?
And Mr. Lally, if you're going to start, are you going to start right with messages?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Folks, be mindful of the instruction I've given you on digital evidence, on what you have to find before you consider them. Also, I want to tell you that what you're going to hear or see is testimony about certain statements allegedly made by the defendant. You're to view those statements solely for the limited purpose of the defendant's state of mind, as it might go to the nature of the relationship with John O'Keefe and potential motive. Okay? All right, Mr. Lally, go right ahead.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Presenting before you now a separate series of documents of about 118 pages in length. Page number just for your references on the side there. In general, do you recognize what those are?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Text messages between the defendant and I.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth to move to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
No, not as the next exhibit. We are going to mark that 104A.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
103A.
103A?
That's my understanding. I think the others were marked 103, so it should be 103.
John O'Keefe's texts were 103.
My mistake.
So it's 104A. And jurors, you'll have both Exhibit 104 with you that was a little bit difficult to read. What we've taken all this time for as counsel was great to work out a form that is much clearer for you to be able to read, and that will be attached or right with Exhibit 104. Okay? Thank you. All right, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Higgins, first, Your Honor, may I request permission to publish to the Bureau on screen?
Yes.
Starting with page number 1. Now, Mr. Higgins, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as Exhibit 104A?
Yes,
And as you just mentioned, these are text messages between yourself and Ms. Reed, is that correct?
yes.
And on what date did you first receive any communication from Ms. Reed?
January 12th, 2022.
And prior to that, had you had her number, or did she have your number as far as you were aware?
No,
You had never communicated to her via cell phone or any other means prior to January 12th, 2022?
no, I had not.
So initially, you received a text on that date from an unknown number, is that correct?
Yes,
And from the text before you and what's up on the screen, as far as there are gray bubbles on the left, blue bubbles on the right, which is you and which is Ms. Reed?
the blue bubbles would belong to myself.
So the other bubbles would be Ms. Reed, is that fair to say?
Yes,
And so that initial communication you received on January 12th, 2022, that's about 8:27 p.m., is that correct?
yes.
And what was the content of the message that you received?
You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Hey, Brian, it's Weed Whacker.
And how did you respond to that?
Question mark.
And if it's helpful to you, sir, if you can't see the screen sort of from where you are, you can read along in the exhibit before you.
Okay.
Now, as far as that communication is concerned, is the weed whacker, what, if any, meaning did that have to you? Or
So ultimately, it was based off a interaction with the defendant, kind of a nickname that she adopted.
and how did that nickname sort of come to be, or what, if anything, transpired between the two of you that led to that?
So I was leaving, I believe, my residence one day in Canton, traveling down Pleasant Street. I saw the defendant along the side of the house on the Pleasant Street side using a weed whacker. And I gave kind of a beep of the horn, and the defendant gave me the finger. So I realized that she clearly must not have recognized me possibly because of what I was driving. I was in my work vehicle. So I spun the vehicle around, and as I pulled up to roll down the window, she said something to the effect, "Get the fuck away from me. My husband's a Boston cop." And then I rolled down the window more, and she clearly recognized me, who I was in that vehicle.
And did that become sort of a recurring theme in subsequent conversations that you had with Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 6 within that exhibit before you.
They're not numbered, right, Mr. Lally?
I'm sorry?
They're not numbered? Is your copy numbered?
No, Your Honor. Not that I can see.
They're not, so be cognizant of that when you ask questions. It may take-
Your Honor, I believe they are, that's why I hesitated. It's sort of in the middle of the page, facing sideways, if you turn the page.
Oh, my apologies. I have it now. Very small.
So just on this page, directing your attention to the bottom, it sort of goes on to the next date of January 13th, is that correct?
Yes.
And if I could direct your attention to page 7 of those text messages. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have page 7 on the screen. And sir, if you could read from page 7, and if you could just indicate who's speaking and what is being said in this communication.
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Did you try those Smirnoff screwdrivers? I stopped at the Hilly for one last night. I said, haha, how did you get my digits? Defendant responded, the Melissa and Lito show. I said, haha, I thought you creeped John's phone. I said, haha, again. Defendant responded, no way. I was the last person in Greater Canton who didn't have your number. I think even Kerry has it. I responded, what, with a bunch of question marks? I said, I just don't give my personal number out to anyone. How would Kerry have my number with a bunch of question mark? And the defendant responded, Melissa had it.
Now, as far as in those communications, the reference the defendant makes to the Melissa and Lito show, do you know what that means?
The two individuals that I also know from the hillside.
And the Kerry person that she refers to, do you know who that is?
I believe that's Kerry Curran, Chris Curran's wife.
Now, if I could direct your attention to page 9. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have page 9. And again, sir, if you could read from page 9 as far as that conversation goes and just indicate whom is speaking at different points.
Okay, so the defendant said, I'd prefer a weed whacker. I responded, that's the thing about nicknames. Defendant said, we were tossing around the idea of a short vacay with the current show, wanted to see if you were game. I responded, you don't have a say. And I believe I was referring to nicknames. And I said, vacation where? Defendant responded, I know. They need to happen organically. I'm the queen of nicknames. Was just going to rent a beach house in, I believe it was supposed to say Fort Lauderdale, it's abbreviated. Something quick and easy. I said, Defendant responded, I'm the queen of vacays too, always a good time. I responded, I'm going to Nashville next month, 19 to 21st, for a benefit. One of our guys got shot in the head. You guys should come.
And as far as either one of those trips that you were discussing, do you recall any further discussion or any going on any of those trips?
Well, I mean, I definitely went to Nashville for that benefit for one of my coworkers. There may have been more conversation about the Florida trip, but I can't specifically recall it.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 16, and Ms. Gilman, if I could have that. And this is on that same date of January 13th, is that correct?
I believe so. The date's not at the top here, but I believe it is.
And again, sir, if you could read from that page of communication as far as who was speaking and what was said.
So there's a photograph of somebody with a weed whacker. The defendant said, no, you're not a creep. I said, nope. She said, you're kind of a loner, which I used to be. I responded, no, not really. I have a ton of buddies, but I only let a handful of friends in that I'm tight with. So you think you got me figured out? And then I typed circle of trust in quotes.
And sir, if I could direct your attention to the next page, number 17. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have that. And again, sir, if you could read from page 17 as far as what is said and who is talking.
So the defendant said, yeah, I said loner, not loser. I assume you know a lot of people, PPL, people abbreviated. You never really can figure anyone out completely. Your dad died when you were young, and I responded, he died in March of 2020. I'm so not a loser, you won't figure me out, LOL. Defendant responded, no one is a loser, I just didn't mean loner to imply friendless. I'm sorry that's recent. It wasn't COVID, was it? I responded, cancer. Defendant responded, I know you date girls who don't lock the house behind them, and you are private and observant. I'm sorry, what kind? I responded, lung, brain, kidney, and pelvis. How do you know all these things, LOL?
If I could turn your attention to the next page, page 18. And again, sir, if you could read from that.
In the blue bubbles is me. I said, you're funny. Defendant responded, yikes, wow, that's rough. Jesus, I'm sorry. We chat a lot at the hillside. I responded, don't be sorry, life is hard sometimes. I always figure it out. Then I said, who chats, question mark. Defendant responded, life is hard, but losing people is the hardest. So I'm sorry, we chat. I responded, that's all you got, we chat? Sure, you're from Brockton, spit it out. Defendant responded, you and I chatted about the girl who kept forgetting to lock the door. I said, oh, she has been out of play like for 3 months now. And then I believe it starts to say out of rotation, question mark.
And then, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 20. And again, sir, if you could read from that.
I'm in the blue bubbles again. I said, I just got a Saturday invite. The defendant said, did you say yes, question mark. I said, not yet, with a bunch of periods, but did respond. Defendant said, what did you say, Mr. Elusive? I responded, no, I just don't want to intrude on your couple's night. Ha ha, I'm shy. The defendant responded, we prefer to hang out with non-couples. Bob Gallery is probably coming too, solo. We'll probably do cards or something at some point. I'm inviting you. And I said, ha ha.
Now, sir, is that the Saturday night that's being referenced there? Is that the same night that you had gone over to the home at some point for the Patriots game?
Yes.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, page 21.
Yes.
And again, if you could read from that page.
The defendant said, John said Brian's being wishy-washy now, in quotes. I responded, haha, did you tell him you texted me? The defendant responded, no. And then I gave a thumbs up. Then I said, you cranky now, question mark. Defendant said, haha, no, just stop being so anti-couples. Most couples don't even like each other. I said, name a few. Defendant said, name a few? I don't know. All of them, question mark. They all want to hang out with single people. And then I said,
Thank you. Sir, if I could direct your attention to page 26. And sir, if I could ask you to read from that page.
in blue is going to be myself again. Foul ball. Defendant responded, you stink. I said, you suck and you're double trouble. Defendant responded, you're hot. I responded, are you serious or messing with me? Defendant responded, no, I'm serious. I responded, failing is mutual. Is that bad? How long have you thought that? Defendant responded, are you okay driving? You don't want to stay here. I responded back, I'm fine. I have an office at the PD. You didn't answer the question. And then it starts to say, defendant said, rather you stay here.
And is that, to your memory, when is that text exchange taking place? In reference to the night that you went over to the O'Keefe's house.
I believe it was that night.
Now, at Mr. O'Keefe's house on that particular evening, do you recall how you came into the house?
I believe it might have been the front door.
And if you know about how long were you at Mr. O'Keefe's house that night?
I was probably one of the last people to leave, I think.
And what, if anything, happened as you were exiting from Mr. O'Keefe's house that night?
So as I was exiting the house, it was either through the breezeway or the garage. And as we were walking out, the defendant planted a kiss on me.
Now, before you went out that way, where was Mr. O'Keefe? Did you say goodbye to him or anything like that?
I think I said goodbye to him. He might have been in the bathroom. I'm not 100% positive where he was.
And when you went to leave, which exit from the house were you headed to initially?
Well, as I said, I don't remember exactly if it was the breezeway or the garage I was starting to walk through, but whichever way I started to exit, the defendant told me to go a different way.
And which way did the defendant tell you to go?
Well, her way.
And
I
what-
don't, I honestly can't tell you which door that was. If it was either the breezeway or the garage.
And as you were going out, again, I'm sorry, what happened?
The defendant kissed me,
And how did she kiss you?
not like a friend.
Lip to lip, is that fair to say?
Yes,
Like a romantic kiss?
that's the way I interpreted it.
And were you still inside the house at the time that this occurred, or were you outside the house, if you know?
Not sure if we had just got to the outside or not. It might have, I'm not sure if it was close proximity to leaving.
And what was your reaction to that?
I was taken back.
Was that something that you were expecting?
No.
And about how long was it between when the defendant kissed you and when you left?
Oh, almost immediately.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention back to the exhibit before you on page number 27.
Yes.
Again, sir, if you could read from that page and who's speaking.
So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, I think you're messing with me. The defendant said, why do you think that? I responded, because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from? Defendant responded, I just think you're like me. I said, meaning? Question mark. Defendant said, do you have your own kids? I said, I have no kids. How am I like you? Question mark. Hello? And defendant responded, aren't we alike? I responded, I think so. So why did you get my number and reach out to me? And I think the defendant put a question mark on that bubble, I believe. Or I might have, I don't know.
Now, that conversation as far as you asking her about why she reached out to you, how often was that question asked by you through the course of these text communications?
Well, the extent of the actual communication via text between the defendant and I was between January 12th and January 29th when John passed. On the 28th and 29th, the 28th, I sent a text, as we spoke about before, when we were at the waterfall. That text didn't respond. There was a text sent by the defendant to me the next day. So in that time period between the 12th and the 29th, there was 9 days that the defendant and I exchanged text messages. With that being said, those text messages, I don't believe, were every day, consecutive days. There was 9 days in between the 12th and the 29th.
And so as far as that questioning, as far as posing to her, why did she reach out to you? Was that something that you asked once or more than once?
Yeah, I asked it more than once, and during the pendency of this communication, I was basically trying to suss out what the intentions were of the defendant. Was the defendant interested in me? Was she at the end of her relationship with John? Was she trying to weaponize me against John and put me in the middle? There was numerous things that were going on. And that's what I was trying to vet out or suss out, or whatever you want to call it. But I was having a hard time accepting what was happening.
And sir, if I could direct you to the next page, page 28. And again, sir, if you could read from that page.
So I'm in the blue bubbles. Shoot straight with me. Defendant responded, I told you, I just think we're alike, right? Couple question marks. I responded, yes, agree. Now what? Defendant responded, I don't know. I said, shouldn't you know? Defendant responded, do you like me? I said, yes, from jump. Defendant said, when was jump? I said, first time I saw you. Defendant responded, when was that? I said, Hillside for your shore.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, 29. If I could ask you to read from that, sir.
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Hillside for sure. When were you interested? Defendant responded, I don't know, you're just my type. I responded, you think you can handle me? I thought you were happy, question mark. Defendant responded, how do you know if I'm happy? I said, I just assumed. Defendant responded, are you hard to handle? I may have put a question mark. Then I said, what do you like about me? Defendant responded, I just feel like you're from my neighborhood. I said, yes, yeah, ditto. Defendant responded, and I think you're hot.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, page 30. If I could ask you to read from that, sir.
I'm in the blue bubbles again. You really think that? I have always thought that about you. Defendant responded, what? I responded that you're hot, smart, witty, but I didn't think you were interested. Defendant responded, witty? I responded, yeah, meaning quick with a response. Tell me why you got my number and reached out to me. Defendant responded, just thought we were the same / from the same neighborhood. I responded, are you afraid to say what's on your mind? What's in your mind? And then I said, on. Defendant responded, no, didn't I? No, didn't I? Question mark.
And sir, if I could turn your attention, to the next page, 31, and ask you to read from that.
I'm glad I'm in the blue bubble again. I'm glad I stopped by. I should have come earlier. Do you really live in Mansfield? Defendant responded, yeah. I was basically begging you. I responded, you don't have to beg me. I meant to say beg. Defendant responded, huh? I said, I will give you what you want. How are you texting right now? And I said, leaving me hanging. Defendant responded, no. I typed kids and then kinda. Defendant responded, how am I texting? And I began to say, is everyone asleep?
As far as the communication from the defendant indicating, yeah, I was basically begging you, what did you take that to mean?
That she wanted me to come over?
And if I could turn your attention to the next page, 32. If I could ask you to read from that page as well.
So it starts off with the defendant saying, I just wide awake on my phone. Yes, they are. I said, I should have stayed, LOL. So now what? Question mark. Defendant said, yes, you should have. I responded, that would have been distracting. So now what? So no, what? And then I said, now. Defendant said, now what? Question mark. I responded, "Ball's in your court." Defendant said, "What do you want?" I responded, "Loaded question. What do you want?" Question mark. Defendant responded, "I asked you!" Exclamation point. I in turn said, "Nope, you initiated this."
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 33. If I could ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, "Spit it out. I'm in the blue bubbles." Defendant said, "Hey, we're single and we don't have kids. We can do whatever we want." I responded, "Don't you have a boyfriend?" Question mark. Defendant responded, "Where are you?" Question mark. I said, "Canton." Defendant said, "Where?" Question mark. I responded, "My office is at the PD. Why? Are you going to Mansfield?" Question mark. Defendant responded, "Where is that?" I said, "Canton PD." Defendant said, "I have a house there from before I reconnected W. John." I responded, "Oh, I feel like you're not really saying what's on your mind."
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 34, and ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant starts off and says, "Do you like me?" Question mark. I responded, "Yes, clearly." Defendant said, "Come over my house." I responded, "When?" Question mark. Defendant said, "When works for you?" I said, "Whoever," and then "whenever." "When works for you?" Question mark. The defendant said, "I asked you first." I responded, "I think you're messing with me." Defendant said, "I'm glad you came over tonight," with some type of face. I responded, "Me too. Ball's in your court. What do you want, Karen? You look great tonight."
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 35, and the last, or second to last blue bubble down the bottom, starting with "Are you glad?" Do you see that?
Page 35?
Yes.
And where is it again?
Second to last blue bubble, starting with "Are you glad?"
Yes. I said, I'm in the blue bubble. I said, "Are you glad you walked me out?" Question mark.
And what did she respond?
Defendant said, "Yes," with like semicolon and some type of a mark there. "Are you?" Question mark. And I said, DEF for definitely.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, 36. And if you could, please read from that.
So at the top, I'm in the blue bubbles. It says yes. And then I said, "Are you going home tonight or tomorrow AM?" Defendant texted, "We kissed, comma, right?" Question mark. So then I put a question mark on her question and said, "Is this a trick question?" Defendant said, "I don't know when I'm going home. I'm selling my house," with what I think is a smiley face. What a trick question, and a couple of question marks. I responded, "Are you moving to Canton? I'm following your lead with this." Defendant responded, "I live here, but I have property in Mfield." I'm guessing it's Medfield. Defendant said, "Why my lead? I don't want any responsibility." I responded, "You started this, right?" Question mark. "Why did you get my number?" And it says each out to me. It meant to say reach out to me. I then said, "Still have not told me."
And sir, if I could direct your attention to the next page, 37, and ask you to read from that.
Defendant said, "Sorry, should I not have?" I responded, "I'm fine with it. Just don't know why you can't answer." Defendant said, "You're mad at me?" I said, "OMG, no, not at all. You're being silly." Defendant said, "I told you!" Exclamation point. "I just think you're like me and I'm attracted to you." And then she said, "A lot." I responded, "Feeling is mutual. I just never saw this coming." Defendant said, "Why?" Question mark. I responded, "Because I just assumed you were happy with your situation." Defendant responded, "I was, but things have deteriorated."
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, 38, and ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, why? Question mark. How so? Question mark. What did Melissa say when you asked for my number? Question mark. Defendant responded, it is very, very complicated. He and I dated when we were kids, and then his sister died and everything got fucked up. I responded, he seems very into you. Defendant responded, I just told Melissa that I had your number but lost it. I said, that's cute. She wasn't suspicious? Question mark. Defendant responded, no, she's great. I responded, does she know you like me? Question mark. Defendant responded, she's a sweetie. We just agreed you are great, with another smiley type face.
And sir, if I could direct your attention to page 40 and ask you to read from that.
Defendant said, yeah, but where is that? I have had all my shit here for a couple of years and my house has been vacant, but I'd like to get closer to the water. I responded, are you breaking up or staying together? Defendant responded, I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I'm very close to his niece. It is a very fucked up situation. I responded, when was that and how did you find out he hooked up? Question mark. I don't want to complicate your situation. Defendant responded, we went away for New Year's, the four of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel all over one of our friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I responded, it does matter.
Now, as far as that indication that she made to you, is it through text communications or in person? Did she indicate at any point in time where that occurred?
So there was an occasion that the defendant stopped at my house. And again, the conversation that took place at my house was in relation to, again, sussing out and trying to figure out if this was everything that I stated before. Like, was this legitimate? Was she seriously interested in me? Was she at the end of her relationship with John? And during that, there was touch on that topic, and I became to realize, it was my understanding at that point that this incident took place in Aruba on New Year's Eve, based off the text messages and the conversation at my residence.
So this was something that she brought up not only in the text communications with you, but in person in communication with you as well?
Yes, I mean, outside of being over there for the game, there was only one time that the defendant and I ever interacted on a one-on-one basis.
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 41, and ask you to read from that.
So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, did they bang? Question mark. The defendant responded, does that matter? Question mark. I said, sorry, I was just asking. I was just trying to figure shit out. Defendant responded, it doesn't really matter. I said, okay, I won't ask again. Defendant said, I don't care, with a smiley face. It doesn't matter. I responded back, okay, hear you loud and clear, Karen. Defendant responded, okay. I responded, why are you getting your thing all twisted up over simple questions? And then I typed thong. Defendant responded, I'm not. I am, question mark. I responded, you're kind of getting defensive. Defendant responded, not at all, with an exclamation point.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct your attention to page 46. Ask you to read from that.
Defendant is in gray. She said, we did kiss earlier, comma, no, with an exclamation point. I responded in blue bubble, I think you initiated that, no, question mark. Defendant said, yep. Do I owe you an apology? Question mark. I said, OMG, no. Why are you being sensitive? Defendant responded, I'm not. I responded, kinda. There's a P and a FFT, never, responded by the defendant. What do you want from me? Question mark. I responded, what's on the table? Question mark. Defendant said, what do you want ideally? Question mark. I responded, the real deal. Defendant responded, it doesn't exist.
could direct your attention to page 57, sir, and ask you to read from that.
It starts off in blue. I said, I can go to any base, but usually Hanscom and Bedford are down to the Cape. Defendant responded, which base down the Cape? Which branch? I said, Army's Army. Defendant said, I'm not abnormally sensitive. I responded, Joint Base Cape Cod. I won't be so hard on you. Defendant responded, OMG, you're not. You called me trouble. That makes me sound bad. I responded, I was just playing with you. Defendant responded, you weren't, but that's okay. I responded, stop being sensitive, please. Defendant responded, I'm not.
Now, sir, in reference, in that page of text communications, you made reference to a base down the Cape, is that right?
Yes.
And where is that in relation to where you live in Barnstable County?
So I can utilize one of the gates to get onto the base. I can get fuel. I can shop. I then can hit the Bourne Bridge, and I would use that as a cut through at the time when I was splitting my time between two different properties.
Is there also like a duty-free shop there?
There is, yes.
And at some point throughout the course of the text communications, did you offer to pick something up for the defendant from that shop?
I believe so.
If I could direct your attention to page 60. And ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, I don't know, question mark. It's an old colonial. It has a lot of bedrooms with kind of an emoji. I responded, more than you clearly need. Are you moving to Canton, question mark. Defendant said, I know, seriously. Some rooms I only go into dust. Not anytime soon. I'm there most of the time, but sometimes it's a lot. I responded, a lot, why, question mark. Defendant respond. I then said, do you even know what you want, question mark, or who, question mark. Defendant responded, because I went from being solo to trying to give attention to kids who aren't mine, and I never wanted kids. I responded, I thought you were in this happy relationship. Defendant responded, everyone is happy at the hillside.
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 61, and ask you to read from that.
So it starts off with the defendant. It said, everyone is happy at the hillside, exclamation point. I responded, oh God, you avoid things. Defendant responded, it's just very, very complicated, dynamic with the four of us. He isn't cut out for what he's doing, and the kids present constant issues. I responded, I think he believes he is doing the right thing. Defendant responded, well, of course he is, but his heart isn't in it. It's only because he was very, very close to his sister. I responded back, I know how you feel, kinda. I was married, and when I met her, she had a 2.5-year-old. I went from being single to being a dad. It's hard. Then I said, I'm divorced since 2017 and have no kids.
If I could ask you to turn to the next page, 62, and ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, I'm divorced since 2017 and I have no kids. Defendant responded, I try very hard, but they are very spoiled and they're not my family. My parents keep telling me I'd feel differently if they were mine or my own sisters. Then I told you he got drunk and sloppy on NYE while we were away, and that has really affected me. I responded, what did he exactly do, question mark. Defendant responded, I never got married, and now somehow I'm arguing someone about raising kids with an emoji. I responded, why don't you tell me, question mark. Defendant responded, he was a puddle all day and then disappeared. Then I found him all over our friend's sister in the lobby of our hotel, and she's gross, which I think may actually be worse, not sure. I responded, oh God, did they bang?
And ask you to turn to the next page, sir, page 63, if you could read from that.
I'm in the blue. I said, did they bang? Question mark. Defendant said, so I was the kids celebrating New Year's. I think it's without him, which shouldn't be my role. No, I doubt it. He was a mess. I said, was it the first time with her, or do you think there were others? Defendant responded, I don't really think there were others. I'm with him all the time. He never seems to want to go anywhere, without me. But honestly, the issues with the kids bother me more than him actually cheating. They are constant, and it feels like a lose-lose. I responded, You clearly have a lot of feelings swirling inside you. Defendant responded, yeah, it's very complicated. Sorry for the rant. I responded, or began to respond, you can vent, babe.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 64, ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, basically, I just feel like I spread myself too thin and sometimes it's thankless. I responded, Defendant responded, you probably felt that way too. I responded, I did at times. It was one, not two, thankfully. Defendant responded, want to grab a drink, question mark. I responded, if you gave me some notice, I could have. Defendant responded, you in capital letters said you were adaptable. I responded, I am, but I have my work truck with me and not my personal. Do you get angry when you don't get your way? Defendant responded, that sounds like an excuse. I rarely get my way.
Now, as far as her invitation, is that something that occurred on one time or more than one time?
I believe it was more than one time.
And at any point in time, other than the two you've already recounted, as far as going over to Mr. O'Keefe's house for the football game, or the defendant stopping by your apartment in West Roxbury, were there any other occasions you went out over the defendant's house or out with the defendant by yourself?
No, never.
And sir, if I could direct your attention to page 74. Ask you to read from that.
Defendant said, are you single, question mark. I responded, yes. Defendant said, I don't think it's out of left field. Wasn't I already begging you to come over last Saturday? Question mark, question mark. I responded, you getting my number from Melissa and reaching out to me? Question mark. Defendant said, and on vacay and probably a few other occasions. I responded, you didn't really beg. Defendant said, I asked at least twice. How do people usually reach out to each other? Question mark, question mark. I responded, why would I have thought you had any interest in me? Question mark. Usually do it when they do live with, do it when they do live with someone. And then I said, do not do it. Defendant responded, maybe, maybe not.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct you to page 77. And ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, I could go on, but I do not want to pump, it should say, your shit up too much. Defendant responded, thanks for saying that, but low comps at the hillside. I responded, you know how to ruin something nice. I frequent other places. The defendant responded, John has showed me about 5 times the Ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly, with an emoji of somebody throwing up. I responded, what? Defendant responded, yeah, he has cameras everywhere, you cops, with another emoji. I responded, Jesus. Defendant said, he's like Christ. Are you guys hooking up? Question mark, question mark. And I said, OMG, great.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 78, sir.
I responded, I don't need drama, dude. Defendant said, no, it's fine. I responded, seriously? Defendant said, I'm serious with an exclamation point. I said, you legit planted one on me. Defendant responded, I know where the cameras are anyway, duh. And then it was OMG Bruins with an emoji after that. I responded, so your slick move isn't on there with some question marks? Defendant responded, course not. I responded, oh my God. And then I said, I almost, an emoji with somebody throwing up. Defendant responded, it was a peck anyway. I kissed Kerry and gay Jeff too. I responded, yeah, weak. I agree.
Now, as far as cameras at Mr. O'Keefe's house, is that something that you were aware was there prior to that conversation with the defendant?
No, not that I recall.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 79. I'd ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, LOL, funny. I responded, so now he is jealous of me, question mark. Defendant said, no, with an exclamation. I told you, he likes you a lot. I said, which makes this worse, question mark. Defendant said, you said or did something at the bar last week, and he goes, I like Brian more and more. I responded, I think he's a good dude too. Defendant responded, yeah, he is. I responded, funny. What's your end game? What do you want from me? You will just confuse it should say the shit out of yourself because I'm a lot of fun.
Now, sir, the he that you're referring to in those text communications, who was that, just for clarity?
John O'Keefe.
And if I could direct your attention to page 84. And ask you to read from that page, sir.
I said, it was fun. Defendant said, I've complimented you today too, with a couple of exclamation points and then some type of emoji. I said, and kicked my nuts in. Defendant said, OMG, how? I responded, if I had more notice, I would have grabbed a drink somewhere, so I'm all set with, that's, and then I said, in quotations, that's fine, but I am not asking again. Defendant said, well, it was 7 p.m. and I'm super cool, so right now I'm asking again with some type of I think it's a smiley face. I responded, coming to your house would have been bad for the both of us. For starters, you wouldn't have wanted me to leave. The defendant responded, now equals not. That sounds good. I responded, that's trouble. Defendant said, why, question mark.
And if I could direct your attention to page 90. Ask you to read from that, sir.
9-0.
90, yes.
The defendant said, no, I'm busting your chops, it's okay. I responded, no, you are sensitive, nice try. You don't think if I came over for a drink, we would have gotten carried away. Defendant said, you in capital letters said you were adaptable and tons of fun. I took that as an invite for an invite. And I responded, oh, okay. Defendant responded, I'm 42. I know what happens when you invite someone over for a drink. I responded, you're the master of avoidance, so you think I would just give it up. Defendant responded, I've been a lot in my life. I have a little bit of cop DM mindset, and then said, been through.
And if I could direct you to the next page, 91, sir.
Defendant said, what am I avoiding, question mark. I'm not afraid to be direct. I responded, some of my questions. Defendant responded, okay, which? Ask again. I said, nope, tricks are for kids. Defendant responded, I'm pretty sure we would have hooked up. I responded, okay. Defendant said, I can't say that, question mark. I said, of course you can. Defendant said, did I miss any other questions, sir, question mark. Probably, are you having a drink right now, question mark. Defendant said, yeah, on my second. I said, show me what you got.
And if I could direct your attention to page 99. And ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, none of that is true, exclamation point. I'm not talking to other guys, and I have issues with John, and things are far from perfect. You just happen to know about him, BC, I guess, because we all hang out at the same bar. I'm sure you talk to other girls. That's what single people do. I'm not married, neither are you, neither is John. I responded, was that your attempt at a lecture or deductive reasoning, question mark? What do you want from me, question mark? Defendant said, that's just how I think / feel. You don't need to approve. I've already answered that last question a couple of times, I think. I responded, I'm not judging you, never have, never will. Defendant responded, you shouldn't. I don't know what your private life is about, nor is it my business.
Thank you, sir. If I can now direct you to page 102 and ask you to read from that.
Defendant said, my only, I'm assuming, point is that there's a difference between being married to someone and dating them, and we have no intention of ever getting married. The point of dating is not to get tied down. If you're not confident, you should be, in my mind anyway. The first two, but I don't care too much about the other girl. I responded, okay, so he is cool with you dating other people, question mark. Defendant responded, and I'm not happy per se, just realistic that there's cracks and it's far from perfect. I doubt it. If he's seeing someone else, I wouldn't want to know either way. He probably feels the same way, and you probably feel that way about whoever you hook up with. I think that's normal. I responded, okay. Defendant said, you don't agree with me, question mark, question mark.
If I could direct your attention to page 107. And ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, at a bar, question mark. I responded, I wasn't suggesting anytime soon. I know you're with your friend. I meant my house. Probably after 8. Defendant said, probably after 8. I responded, okay, if you don't wanna, that's fine, no pressure. Defendant responded, I will a drink. It looks like I tabbed the bubble with a question mark. I then said, what do you drink, question mark. Are you out now, question mark. Defendant responded, sorry, I'll drink whiskey if that's what you're having. I responded, haha, send me a pic of you two.
Now, you had testified earlier about some occasion prior to the 28th when the defendant had come over your house in West Roxbury, correct?
Yes.
In this page that you just read, as well as some of the successive pages after that, is that sort of arranging for that to occur after she goes out or leaves from a friend out in Boston?
I believe she was out with a friend that night in Boston, a female friend, yes.
And that evening when she came over your house, about how long was she there?
Not long.
And so what happened when she arrived, or what, if anything, did the two of you talk about?
It was kind of more of this. It was a kind of a, wasn't an interrogation, it was a face-to-face version of trying to suss out and vet, like, what is this all about? Again, I mean, you know, I'm not proud of these text messages. It is what it is. I'll take responsibility for them. But, you know, John was a friend at the same time, and I certainly wasn't, if they were at the end of the relationship, they were at the end of their relationship, but I wasn't going to have somebody utilize me and weaponize me against somebody that I liked. And it was just a weird experience. It was, I don't either think either one of us finished a drink. It was, like I said, it was this type of like, what is this all about? And then she left. I think I might have asked her to text me when she got in, so I knew she got home.
Now, that evening or at any other point, in your friendship or your relationship, whatever, however you want to term it, was there any other sort of intimate contact beyond what you described occurring as she walked you out that night you were over at Mr. O'Keefe's house for the Patriots?
Are you asking if she ever kissed me again?
I'm asking if there was any kissing, any sexual relationship, anything at all between yourself and the defendant.
Absolutely not. In referring to at my residence, when she stopped by, it was just, I was very uncomfortable, and it was just an uncomfortable situation. Just a weird vibe. That's the best I can describe it.
And lastly, sir, lastly as it applies to this, turning your attention to the last page, number 118. And there's a couple different dates from the middle to the bottom of the page, is that correct?
There is.
If I could ask you to start reading from, excuse me, where it says Sunday, January 23rd, 9:40 p.m.
Defendant, so Sunday, January 23rd at 9:40 p.m., defendant texted me, phone works, and then an emoji with arrows going like both ways. And I responded, thought you were all set, question mark. Defendant said, with talking, question mark? No. I said, are you sure? And she didn't respond, and I believe I said, that was it for that, the 23rd, I'm sorry.
So then the next date that any text communication was sent between the two of you would have been Friday, 11:32 p.m., is that correct?
That's correct. That would have been when we were at the waterfall.
And again, what does the text say there?
Well,
That's from you to her, is that correct?
yes,
And then the next text communication is the following day, or Saturday, the 29th at 11:54 a.m., is that correct?
yes.
And who is speaking in that communication and what is said?
That is the defendant, and the defendant said John died.
And did you respond to that at all?
No,
And did you have any other communication with Ms. Reed following receiving that text message on January 29th?
no, I have not.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, you can take it. Sir, if I could, a couple more questions for you, taking you back on the early morning of January 29th, when you had come from Waterfall to Fairview and then you were leaving from Fairview, if I could turn that sort of portion into your mind. When you're pulling away from the residence, the period of time that you were talking about as far as the plow being down and scraping a little bit on the ground, do you recall that?
I do.
About how much distance are we talking about with respect to that?
Distance, less than a foot, I would say. I mean, it's real quick. I heard it.
And then as far as when you familiar with an area in the front of Mr. Albert's property at 34 Fairview where there is a flagpole and a fire hydrant?
I do know where that is, yes.
And as you drove by the house that evening, where were you in relation to that part of the yard?
When I drove away,
Yes.
well, I might have been I was in the street. I pulled away, so that area would be on my passenger side.
And so what I'm asking, sir, is as you pulled away, did you pull away alongside the curb? Did you pull to the middle of the street? Or where did you direct the vehicle to go as you were pulling away?
Like any other time, I pulled away from the curb, and that's kind of it's a one-lane street, so to speak, and nobody was coming towards me, so just pulled out into the street, drove away.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
I'll see you for 1 minute over here at sidebar before we begin. Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch. All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Who did you come here today with, Mr. Higgins?
Who did I travel to the courthouse with?
Who did you meet here?
An attorney, my attorney.
Is there a reason that you felt compelled to bring an attorney with you for your testimony as a witness in a homicide investigation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Trial, I should say.
Sustained.
You brought your attorney with you who's sitting right behind you, correct?
That is not my attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were his attorney. My mistake. Where's your attorney?
I don't know. He might be in the courthouse.
Is he in the building?
I don't know where he physically is right now.
Okay, without telling me anything that you said to your attorney, did you meet with him this morning before your testimony?
Yes,
Did you meet with him during the break in your, again, don't tell me what you talked about, but did you meet with him during the break when we took a break a few minutes ago?
yes, I did.
Okay. And obviously the subject matter, again, without telling me any communication, the subject matter was your testimony here today, correct?
No,
How many conversations have you had with Mr. Lally about your testimony or your proposed testimony in anticipation of you testifying today?
one.
When was that?
That was on Monday.
How long was that conversation?
I would say under an hour and a half
In person or over the phone?
in person.
Where was that conversation?
That was at the DA's office.
Who else was there?
My attorney, victim witness advocate, I believe her name is Kristen Collins, ADA McLaughlin, ADA Lally, and Lieutenant Brian Tully from the Mass State Police.
Anybody taking notes?
I did not. I don't know if anybody was taking notes.
Well, you were sitting there watching Lieutenant Tully. Did he take notes?
Not that I saw, no.
So you had an hour and a half long conversation with the prosecution team and a police officer witness, and you're telling me that you did not see anybody taking a single note down. Is that right?
That's correct. I did hand something to Lieutenant Tully, but he didn't take any notes in reference to what I handed him.
What'd you hand him?
I handed him a piece of mail that I got at my residence.
Anything having to do with this case?
Well, I believe so.
Was that turned over to Mr. Lally?
No, I turned it over to State Police.
Your Honor, may we approach for a second?
Yes.
Other than that piece of mail that you handed to Lieutenant Tully, was there any other exchange of documents or anything like that? Have you shown anything in anticipation of your testimony?
The only thing I can be recalled showing was a photograph of the exterior of 34 Fairfield Road in Canton.
What about the text messages that you just went over extensively? Were you shown those?
I was shown a pile of papers, and I was advised that those text messages were going to be, they were put into another format so they were easier to read.
And these are the screenshots that you've just described on the exhibit.
Well, as I said, he showed me the stack, said they were the text messages. They were in a different format, but I'm assuming that's what they were.
What was your assignment with the ATF back in 2022?
I was assigned to the Bridgewater Field Office, but I was full-time with the United States Marshal Service doing fugitive apprehension.
And where were you physically officing out of?
Well, I continue to maintain the office at Canton PD.
Okay, but to be clear, you were a federal officer, not a Canton police officer on some sort of a task force with Canton PD, correct?
No, I was not on a task force with Canton PD.
But you did have an office at Canton PD based on a personal relationship that you had with the chief, correct? He gave you this office as a courtesy, is that right?
So if I can explain,
Yes or no? Was it provided as a courtesy?
well, working partnership, I would say.
And you've been asked that specific question in a prior hearing, correct?
Yes,
In June of 2023, right?
yes,
And you explained, look, there was a personal relationship that I had with Chief Berkowitz.
I did.
It was born out of
Tragedy,
a family tragedy that he was aware of.
horrible tragedy, yes.
And based on that personal friendship and that personal relationship, he offered you the convenience of officing out of Canton PD.
I would say that's a good summary.
And in addition to just having an office there, you also had a key card access, correct?
I did to get in and out.
What was the name that you used? You said it was a proxy card?
I think it's called, I think in the IT world, it's probably called a proxy card. That's what I know it to be.
So you had both a physical office and full access to Canton PD, all based on the friendship and relationship and convenience, the friendship and relationship you had with Chief Berkowitz and the convenience that he wanted to give you for having that office there, correct?
No, I wouldn't say full access. I had access to certain areas within the department.
Well, you certainly had access to and from your office.
Yes,
You had ingress and egress to the Canton Police Department.
yes,
You could go in and out of the Sally Port.
I could.
You could go upstairs to Chief Berkowitz's office.
Yes,
You could go downstairs to the dispatch area, which is on the first floor, correct?
yes,
And then you could go out to the Sally Port, into the Sally Port, across that garage, those two bay doors, at your leisure.
well, that would exclude the evidence room, the arms room, and places like that. I didn't have access to those places.
Right. But the places that I just mentioned, you did have access to.
Yes, absolutely.
You'd had that office for what? Back in January of 2022, probably had that office for more than what, 3 years?
I would estimate probably sometime around 2018.
2018. Okay,
Yeah.
not 18 years. 2018.
No, 2018, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My
So,
apologies.
Yeah, maybe close to 4 years.
Yes,
Okay. I want to turn your attention, Mr. Higgins, to January 28, January 29, 2022. By the way, I should ask another foundational question. Are you currently still at ATF?
am I employed by ATF?
Correct.
Yes, I am, a
Okay.
special agent, yes.
And what is your current billet or your assignment?
Objection.
Is that something you're free to discuss?
I'm assigned to division operations at this time.
Okay, what does that mean?
That's,
You're taken out of the field?
was I taken out of the field? Yes.
Are you no longer in the field?
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike.
Sustained, let's move on. You may be able to come back to this.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to turn your attention now to January 28, 29 of 2022. You recall those dates?
I do,
You've been living with those dates for the last couple of years.
like a nightmare.
John O'Keefe's body was found outside your friend Brian Albert's house on the morning of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes,
You've previously testified that on January 28th, you had gone to New York for this memorial service, correct?
funeral service, yes.
The funeral service, not the memorial, you separate the two?
So, well, the wake would be the night before, funeral, I call them the services. It wasn't a memorial. Memorial to me would be more of like an annual thing. This was the services.
Understood.
Just want to be clear.
So you went with Brian Albert, Kevin Albert, and Eddie Hernandez, is that right?
I traveled down there myself, but I met up with them.
To go to the services?
Yes,
Is it fair to say that you and Brian Albert and Kevin Albert sort of run in the same social and professional circles?
I mean, without speaking for anybody else, I think we know a lot of the same people.
Go to some of the same holiday parties, for instance,
Yes.
Go to some of the same events, whether they're law enforcement events or otherwise?
Retirement parties, yes, things like that.
Might meet up at a bar and have a social drink together?
Yes.
Might share a meal together, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that you particularly are pretty well connected to the Canton law enforcement community?
Could you qualify that, explain that?
You know quite a few cops, right?
Well, it's a small department, so I do know everybody in the building in some capacity.
Okay, so my question is, you know quite a few cops in Canton.
I do.
You're pretty good friends with, as a matter of fact, maybe best friends with the chief of police, former chief of police, Kenny Berkowitz, correct?
Yes.
You know Brian Albert, he's a Boston police officer.
Yes.
You know his brother and work with his brother at Canton PD, correct?
Yes.
So it's fair to say, back to my original question, you're relatively well connected in the law enforcement community, the fabric of that community in Canton. Is that right?
Well, I think that comes with working with people, yes.
Is that yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you've even given a personal toast at one of these events, these retirement events, et cetera, correct?
Chief Berkowitz, yes.
And during the course of that toast, you even said, if you want to hide a body, Kenny Berkowitz is your man, correct?
Objection.
Did
That
you
was a
say
joke.
that? Did you say that?
I don't recall that.
You don't remember telling that joke in front of a room full of folks?
I don't.
If you want to hide a body, Kenny Berkowitz is your man?
I don't.
You will agree that some of your closest friends are some of the more powerful people in Canton in terms of politics and law enforcement, right?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
At that same retirement dinner, there were members of the DA's office there, correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, the DA, Michael Morrissey, was there.
I believe he was at one point.
All right. And that was the same event that you gave either a keynote speech or some sort of a speech for Chief Berkowitz's retirement. Is that right?
Yes.
How long have you known Brian Albert specifically?
I think I had some interaction with him when I was on the Cambridge Fire Department in my capacity in fire investigations. And then I would say pretty much through my entire career at ATF, you know, I came into contact with Brian.
Give me a number of years.
Well, I've been with ATF now for 15 years. I've probably known him at least that whole time.
You'd say that you have both a social and professional working relationship with him?
I would say yes, he's a friend.
Frequently drink together?
We have drank together. I wouldn't say frequently, but yes, we've drank together.
Break bread together, have meals together?
Absolutely, had lunch.
As a matter of fact, you were asked at a prior hearing whether or not you could put a number on the number of times that you've had drinks with Brian Albert, and you said somewhere around 50 or something like that? Or under, actually you said under 50?
Under 50, I think I might have said 30.
And that was in 2 years, correct?
Yes.
So not under 50 in the entirety of your relationship, a 15-year relationship with Brian Albert, literally in the prior 2 years when you gave your testimony in June of 2023. In those 2 years, met up with him and had drinks under 50 times.
Was that a question?
Yes,
Well, could you rephrase it?
sure. Is it true that you testified, answer, quote, I mean, in 2 years, I mean, maybe under 50? End quote. That was your testimony to how often you socialized with Brian Albert, correct?
So we socialized more when I started working with his unit.
Okay, so my question is, well,
I don't know the exact number, but yes, we socialized, absolutely.
That's all I was getting at.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, there's no secrets here. He's my friend.
Mr. Higgins, let me ask the questions. I get it.
That's fine.
I get it. You also know Brian Albert well enough to know what his relationship with, for instance, the other guy that you traveled back from New York with, Eddie Hernandez.
I do know Eddie Hernandez. I actually know Eddie the longest out of everybody.
So you knew Eddie, or Officer Hernandez,
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask the question.
You knew Officer Hernandez before you ever knew Brian Albert.
Yes,
You knew him before you even knew Kevin Albert.
yes,
And you're aware that there was a physical altercation
Objection,
between
Your Honor.
Brian Albert and Eddie Hernandez that you're aware of, correct?
The objection sustained.
Are you aware that Brian Albert had gotten into a fist fight with Eddie Hernandez?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you at a Christmas party when that happened?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained is to that form. You can be specific. though.
Have you ever been at an event with Brian Albert and Eddie Hernandez and seen them fight?
Objection.
Christmas 5 years or so before 2022.
Okay, the objection sustained.
You do know that Brian Albert has a reputation for being a fighter.
Objection.
Sustained.
You were asked in a formal interview, do you recall, I want to make sure I'm clear about some of your prior statements. You had a formal interview with some folks prior to your testimony at a prior proceeding. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I'm tracking.
Okay. At the formal interview, which is what I'm going to call that,
Okay.
the formal interview, you were asked about Brian Albert and his reputation, were you not? Yes or no?
Yes.
You indicated in that formal interview that even Chief Berkowitz was
Objection.
quote, a little afraid of Brian Albert.
All right, so that is the objection sustained. That's stricken. I'll see you at sidebar.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're also relatively close friends. In addition to being close friends with Brian Albert, you're also relatively close friends with his brother, Kevin, correct?
I am.
Kevin Albert is a detective with the Canton Police Department, is that right?
Yes.
And you've worked in the same physical office with him for a number of years?
Physical building.
Physical building, that's a better way to put it.
It's different.
Is that right?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that you've consulted with Kevin Albert on certain of his cases professionally, is that right?
I've assisted.
And you've also socialized with him shared drinks with him,
Yes,
gone out
I-
to bars with him, is that right?
Yes, I have.
It's fair to say that you know the Albert family relatively well.
I would say that I know Brian and Kevin the best.
On January 28th, you drove your Jeep Wrangler to the Hillside Bar to meet up with Brian Albert for drinks, correct?
I did.
You said you drank 3 to 4 whiskey sodas at the Hillside, is that right?
It'd be Jameson and ginger, not whiskey soda.
My mistake. Jameson and ginger. Jameson is Irish whiskey,
It is.
and ginger is ginger ale?
Yes.
Okay. What was Brian Albert drinking?
If I was to guess, it's a beer.
I don't want you to guess. Do you know what he was drinking?
No, I don't.
He was drinking
He was
something?
drinking something.
Okay, alcoholic.
Yes.
You two were probably going round for round. In other words, finish a drink, get another round for the two of you, finish it, get another round.
I don't think we. No, I wouldn't say we were going round for round.
So he was nursing one beer while you had 4 Jamesons?
Well, it would have taken. Say that again.
He was nursing one beer while you had 4 Jamesons? What you said?
No, he was probably. Maybe he had more beers than I had Jamesons. Is more what I would say.
Okay, so maybe he had 5 or 6 beers while you had 4 Jamesons.
I'm not going to put a number on it because I don't know.
But it was more.
More than what?
More than you.
Maybe. He wasn't there that long.
Well, it doesn't take that long to drink a beer, does it? I mean, if you're sort of thirsty and in a hurry.
Is that a question?
Everything I say up here is a question.
Okay.
Just presume
Well,
that.
all right. So
Well, that wasn't, so.
So let's, question. Yes, Mr. Higgins, that was a question.
All right, let me put a question mark at the end of that.
okay.
Your memory that Brian Albert had more drinks than you did when you had those 3 to 4 Jameson and Gingers.
To be honest with you, I wasn't keeping track.
He left Hillside and you stayed, correct?
For a short time, yes.
You later changed your mind and ultimately decided to go to the waterfall. You finished whatever you're eating or drinking and decided to go over to the waterfall, right?
Yes, because I'm always saying I'm going to show up and then I kind of do the Irish exit. So I decided it was a long day, it was an emotional day, and I decided to join them.
Did you drive your vehicle over there
Yes, I did.
after having as many as 4 whiskeys?
Yes.
Brian Albert, did he drive himself?
Well, I didn't see him. I dropped him off in Boston PVD district down there in Charlestown, and I'm assuming he drove back towards that way to meet me.
He wasn't with anybody else.
Not that I know of.
So he was drinking at the Hillside Bar and then got in his car and drove over to the waterfall as well.
I didn't see him drive over, but I assume that's what he did, yes.
You went to John O'Keefe's house. I'm going to shift gears for a second. You went to John O'Keefe's house at some point to watch the Patriots game on January 16th, right?
Yes.
That was the time when you indicated that when you left, Karen gave you a kiss goodbye, correct?
Yes.
It's safe to say that that was not some hot, passionate, long kiss, but you think it was more than just a friendly peck, correct?
I wouldn't describe it as a peck. I'd describe it as more than friends. It was a kiss.
Well, you did describe it as a peck, didn't you?
When?
When you texted Karen Reed and she said it was just a peck, and then you texted back, I agree,
Figure of speech.
or the truth, right?
Figure of speech.
After that incident, it's safe to say, we've just gone through a number of them, you exchanged flirtatious texts with Miss Reed, is that right?
Is the incident you're referring to when she kissed me?
No, I'm saying after that. After that incident, yes, after the Patriots game,
Okay, yep.
you exchanged flirtatious texts
We did.
with Miss Reed.
I did.
And that was over the course of a few weeks, a couple of weeks, but just 9 days. Is that right?
So it was between the January 12th and I would say before the 28th, because the 28th, she didn't respond, and the 29th, she sent that last text that John died.
Well, it's
Those weren't,
actually- You've looked at the text, right?
I have.
You just looked at the last couple of texts.
I did.
The last text that she sent of any substance was January 23rd, right? Almost a
Well,
week.
I think the text,
Almost a
I think the
week.
text on the 29th, John died, there's substance there.
Okay, I'm not suggesting I'm talking about after you said, well,
Yeah.
on the 28th, right? The text of substance between the two of you, talking between the two of you, not the John died text. That substance ended on the 23rd, didn't it?
I'd have to have the text in front of me to agree with you.
I think it's right here, Mr. Jackson, right in front of the exhibits right there.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, are you directing me to the 23rd?
I'm directing you to the last page. Just look at everything on it and tell me if that refreshes your recollection. This is the last substantive text about you and Karen before your well.
Yes, it'd be the 23rd at 9:40.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. So it was 9 days of texting between the two of you, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And aside from the kiss goodbye, you two never had any sort of physical contact with one another,
Do you mean intimate when you say physical?
correct?
Yes.
I'm not talking about shaking her hand, Mr. Higgins.
Well, I want to answer your question truthfully.
I would like you to, too. You didn't have any physical, intimate contact with Miss Reed, correct?
No, I did not.
There was no other hugs or kisses or certainly no sex.
No.
And when she said, I'm glad you came over tonight, in one of those texts that you just read a few minutes ago, she was referring to the Patriots game with John there and a big crowd there, correct?
Yes.
Over the course of that week or so, Ms. Reed did explain her feelings about her relationship with Mr. O'Keefe, correct? In text messages.
During the pendency of our communication, she did express, yes.
And she indicated that there's a difference between being married to someone and dating someone, et cetera. We saw those texts, is that right?
Yes.
She also indicated that in terms of the situation in Aruba, she was upset by that, but it's not that big a deal, correct?
It was clear to me she was upset.
And she said, I don't care too much about that other girl, right?
Well, at least that's what she said in text, yes.
That's what I'm asking you. Is that what she said in text, Mr. Higgins? It's not a trick question.
That's what she said in text.
Right. She said something along the lines of, I'm just trying to be realistic. There's cracks in the relationship. It's far from perfect. Is that right?
I think that's something she texted.
All right. And you'll agree that during the course of these texts, you were constantly asking for clarity and explanation from her, were you not?
During our communication, I did ask for clarity.
Many times. You
Yes.
saw it, correct?
Yes.
And she pretty much wouldn't answer you, correct?
She was non-committal, I would say.
Which is why you were saying in your texts, why won't you answer the question? And she would parry and not answer that one either, correct?
Well, I didn't want to be stuck in the middle of anything.
That's not my question. I'm asking you whether or not she would answer your question about clarity specifically.
She avoided questions about text.
Right. And that was frustrating because you were very interested in her romantically at that point, correct?
I was attracted to her. I don't know that I would say very interested in her.
You texted things like, why did you get my number and reach out? That's a quote from the text we just read, correct?
I did ask that, yes.
You said, now what? Is that right?
Yes.
You texted, so now what? Correct?
Yes.
You texted, I would hang out, meaning with you,
Yes.
correct? You were showing interest in her.
Yes.
You were showing romantic interest in her.
I wouldn't say it was romantic. I was trying to vet it out.
Well, you weren't seeing if she wanted to go see a ball game with you as a buddy, right?
Not really, no.
No, you were showing romantic interest in her, weren't you?
I was trying to vet out was her interest in me legitimate. It was very normal for me to have that question in my mind when I didn't initiate this, she did. And I think it was a fair question just to try to find out.
You were showing romantic interest in Karen Reed, weren't you?
I was interested, but I don't think I was at the romantic phase.
Okay. When I say romantic, well, what do you mean by romantic? What's the romantic phase?
Sending somebody flowers?
Dating?
Well, there's a difference between dating and hanging out. I mean,
Well-
it's kind of hard to date somebody when you have a boyfriend.
Mr. Higgins, well, it's not if both people are dating other people, right? Happens all the time, doesn't it?
Well, I think I asked that question too.
Right, that's not my question. My question is, you seem to have a problem admitting that you had a romantic interest in my client. Is there a reason for that?
I was attracted to her.
Right, physically attracted,
I thought she was an attractive woman.
romantically attracted.
I'm not going to go there. No, I don't agree with that.
Of course you're not going to go there, because that would put you in a very awkward position, wouldn't it, sir?
Objection.
Not at all.
So the objection sustained is to the form. You can ask it differently, and that answer will be stricken
I'm
now.
sorry, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
You were sexually attracted to her.
I was physically attracted to her, yes.
Okay, sexually attracted to her was my question,
Well, I think in the text I said you're hot.
okay? So my question again, Mr. Higgins, you seem to not want to answer my question. My question is, were you or were you not sexually attracted to my client?
Yes.
Okay. You were saying things like, what do you want from me? And I want the real deal. Those are your words, correct?
Yes.
And the real deal with you would be to date her, to get involved with her, romantically, correct?
No.
The real deal was what? What did you mean by I want the real deal?
Like a relationship.
What kind of relationship? A buddy-buddy relationship? You just want to go like
The same thing everybody wants, a real relationship.
a romantic relationship, Mr. Higgins?
It's possible.
Right. And she was answering with things like, when you said, now what? She answered, I don't know, correct?
Yes, she did.
When you asked, so now what? She answered, I'm sorry, when you said, so now what? She answered, now what? Correct?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't agree with you. If I'd like to see what you're referring to.
Well, you just read it about 10 minutes ago. Would you quarrel if
I know, but you're giving me portions of it.
you were given portions of it by Mr. Lally as well,
Okay.
right? Did you text something like, now what? And she responded something like, now what?
I think on one occasion she did. Yes.
Okay. And you remember you just read a text where she texted, I'm sorry, you texted, what do you want from me? And her responsive text was, I don't know. Correct?
I think that was one of the texts.
Again, with this theme of her being non-committal, one way or the other. Is that right?
Well, that's not how I would interpret it as a theme, no.
Well, didn't you just say she was non-committal? That was your word, not mine.
I did, but as I told you, it's been a process of trying to suss it out and see what this was all about.
Right. So when you were sussing it out and determining whether or not you were going to advance this romantic interest, she was sort of non-committal, wasn't she?
Well, not one person advances it. I think that's a joint thing.
When you texted, you want the real deal, she responded, it doesn't exist, didn't she?
She did, yes.
And she never once in any of those texts expressed anger or hatred toward John O'Keefe, correct?
No, not at all.
But in fact, she indicated more of frustration with the immediate family. The kids, she didn't want to have kids.
In its
Didn't want to-
totality, I would say yes.
And then on January 23rd, as you just saw, she just stopped communicating with you altogether, correct?
Until the 29th, yes.
Correct. Do you know what the term ghosted means?
I think I have a general idea, yes.
She sort of ghosted you, didn't she?
I wouldn't agree with that.
That was frustrating to you, that she just stopped communicating, wasn't it?
No, not at all.
You had been moving through this mindset of exploring a romantic interest with a beautiful woman, thought was interested in you, and just like that, it was done, right?
No.
So what communication did you have with her after January 23rd?
Well, she texted me on January 29th.
You keep saying that, but you know what I'm getting to. January 29th was her informing you that a tragedy had occurred. John had died, right? I'm not talking about that, Mr. Higgins, so I don't want to keep playing games.
All right, so that's what we talked about. No more of
Sorry,
that.
Your Honor. After the 23rd, or up to the 23rd, she had been texting back and forth with you pretty regularly. You just saw it, correct?
She also sent me a text with arrows saying the phone works both ways.
And as of the 23rd, she stopped, didn't she?
The texts were sporadic over those 9 days. I don't know if they would have stopped or they would have kept going.
Well, they didn't keep going, did they?
Well, John passed away.
You know they didn't keep going because from the 23rd onto the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, all the way to the 29th, she never texted you, right?
I believe so.
She didn't respond to any of your texts, correct?
Well, she didn't respond to the text on the 28th Friday.
All right, why don't we take our lunch and recess, folks? And what I'm going to ask the jury to do is, can we do a 45-minute lunch instead of an hour's lunch today? And also, you don't have to answer me now, but maybe we'll go to 4:30 rather than 4 o'clock, if that works for you. If it doesn't work for any one of you, let the court officer know. All right, thank you.
Jurors, leaving your notebooks on your chairs. All right, follow me, jury up.
So why don't I see counsel over here at sidebar?
You are muted.
Oh, thank you.
All rise for the court, please.
Other than that piece of mail that you handed to Lieutenant Tully, was there any other exchange of documents or anything like that? Were you shown anything in anticipation of your testimony?
The only thing I can be recalled showing was a photograph of the exterior of 34 Fairfield Road in Canton.
What about the text messages that you just went over extensively? Were you shown those?
I was shown a pile of papers, and I was advised that those text messages were going to be, they were put into another format, so they were easier to read.
And these are the screenshots that you've just described on the exhibit.
Well, as I said, he showed me the stack, said they were the text messages. They were in a different format, but I'm assuming that's what they were.
What was your assignment with the ATF back in 2022?
I was assigned to the Bridgewater Field Office, but I was full-time with the United States Marshal Service doing fugitive apprehension.
And where were you physically officing out of?
Well, I continue to maintain the office at Canton PD.
Okay, but to be clear, you were a federal officer, not a Canton police officer on some sort of a task force with Canton PD, correct?
No, I was not on a task force with Canton PD.
But you did have an office at Canton PD based on a personal relationship that you had with the chief, correct? He gave you this office as a courtesy, is that right?
So if I can explain.
Yes or no? Was it provided as a courtesy?
Well, working partnership, I would say.
And you've been asked that specific question in a prior hearing, correct?
Yes.
In June of 2023, right?
Yes.
And you explained, look, there was a personal relationship that I had with Chief Berkowitz.
I did.
It was born out of
Tragedy.
a family tragedy that he was aware of.
Horrible tragedy, yes.
And based on that personal friendship and that personal relationship, he offered you the convenience of officing out of Canton PD.
I would say that's a good summary.
And in addition to just having an office there, you also had a key card access, correct?
I did, to get in and out.
What was the name that you used? You said it was a proxy card?
I think it's called, I think in the IT world, it's probably called a proxy card. That's what I know it to be.
So you had both a physical office and full access to Canton PD, all based on the friendship and relationship and convenience, the friendship and relationship you had with Chief Berkowitz and the convenience that he wanted to give you for having that office there, correct?
No, I wouldn't say full access. I had access to certain areas within the department.
Well, you certainly had access to and from your office.
Yes.
You had ingress and egress to the Canton Police Department.
Yes,
You could go in and out of the Sally Port.
I could.
You could go upstairs to Chief Berkowitz's office.
Yes.
You could go downstairs to the dispatch area, which is on the first floor, correct?
Yes.
And then you could go out to the Sally Port, into the Sally Port, across that garage, those 2 bay doors at your leisure.
Well, that would exclude the evidence room, the arms room, and places like that. I didn't have access to those places.
Right. But the places that I just mentioned, you did have access to.
Yes, absolutely.
You'd had that office for what? Back in January of 2022. Probably had that office for more than what, 3 years?
I would estimate probably sometime around 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
Not 18 years. 2018.
No, 2018, I'm sorry. My apologies.
So, yeah, maybe close to 4 years.
Yes.
Okay. I want to turn your attention, Mr. Higgins, to January 28, January 29, 2022. By the way, I should ask another foundational question. Are you currently still at ATF?
Am I employed by ATF?
Correct.
Yes, I am, a special agent, yes.
And what is your current billet or your assignment?
Objection.
Is that something you're free to discuss?
All right, let's get a commercial break in here. We'll get you back into the courtroom for more of The Cross. It's going to get good. Stay with us.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, another big day of testimony in the trial of Karen Reed. Key witness Brian Higgins gives his firsthand account of the night before Officer John O'Keefe was found dead in the snow. Plus, the Doomsday Prophet murder trial is nearing its dramatic conclusion. We'll unpack the triple murder case against Chad Daybell ahead of next week's Closing Arguments.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.